Welcome to Team Futurism. I am your host, Peter Clarke, and today I'm interviewing Tim Grady, who is running for governor of Ohio as an independent. He is the former chair of the Ohio Forward Party and is currently a graduate student at Ohio State University. Tim, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very excited.
Let's go ahead and just start with your general pitch. So, why are you running for governor of Ohio?
Truthfully, I am running because I believe the country and the state is in a state of crisis. It's been in a crisis for a long time. I've seen it unfolding for much of my life. I honestly draw a lot of it back to the 2008 financial crisis, and how we've just been unraveling since then in the country and in the world, increasingly partisan, increasingly polarized, increasingly open to conflict, and increasingly unsettled economically and socially. So I believe we are a country in crisis. I believe a lot of that crisis cannot be solved, cannot be addressed or resolved by the Democratic and Republican parties, because I truly believe that they are part of the problem. They are part of the crisis, if only in that they are creating a permanent division within our country of teams, of political entrenchment, of one side versus the other, othering each other. And that has to be resolved if we're going to solve anything else. So that is why I'm running as an independent. It's why I'm running for governor, because that is the lowest office I can practically run for, and still have the means to achieve my goals of not just becoming governor and trying to implement better, stronger politics and policy, but trying to truly build and mobilize a movement of uniting Americans, of Americans who care about the future of this country and who are going to stand up and fight for it against those who are trying to destroy the country. And really, that is what I've been working on most of my life, this idea that we are in crisis, and it could keep getting worse, and it has been getting worse. And I have supported, centrist, independent, third party movements for much of my life. I supported the Centrist Project. So before it became Unite America, I joined the Forward Party and supported that. I do think we need to build a real movement for new politics and for new voices to be heard. So that's what I'm about. And my campaign is an opportunity to mobilize people and really fight for real change.
Yeah, so you did in 2018 as a libertarian, you were nominee for the state representative seat, I believe. And in 2022, you did a gubernatorial run as a fake supervillain named Dark Horse. Maybe we can talk about that. But the through line does seem for your political campaign history that you have been trying to be, a candidate who unites and who doesn't just like pick a side that's gonna like other the like half the country. But you did say a phrase there in your opening remarks about people trying to destroy the country, and you don't want to be one of them. Do you really think anybody's trying to destroy the country? Because I kind of don't. I think that like people genuinely feel that the other side is trying to destroy the country, and meanwhile nobody actually is. That's like my sense. But like it's almost like there's a misunderstanding among people in my head. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, there's probably no one with malicious intent. I suppose
Russian bots might be trying to destroy our country.
To outright destroy the country. I think there are a lot of people who have bad incentives in other respects that lead them to do things that are in aggregate quite harmful. And the rule, never mistake incompetence for malice. So there's probably just straight up a great deal of true incompetence, but people are being led to divide and destroy the country for all sorts of different reasons. Especially in politics, it's if you're a Democrat or Republican, a politician, you want to win, you want to get elected. And at this point, our politics has devolved into negative partisanship. It's devolved into, voters don't really support the candidate, they just hate the other guy so much. And every politician has that incentive to keep feeding on that because the other strategy just isn't there. I do think some of it is, I think the Democratic and Republican parties in many ways are intellectually bankrupt. They've run out of ideas. They don't have a positive vision for the future to offer. Not really. Like, even when they are saying, we're going to do this, this, and this, it is often the same sort of promises they've been making for 40, 50 years, and that haven't galvanized the country, that hasn't come anywhere near implementation. It's not credible. And that's why voters are constantly and desperately looking for alternatives. That's why really you've seen a lot more primary challenges, a lot more pushing candidates to the extremes, and a lot of situations starting really with the Tea Party way back in 2010, where you would see establishment candidates losing in primaries. And with I see in Unite America and what became of Forward, a lot of the political centrist thinkers concluded, okay, the problem is primary voters are too extreme, or the problem is our election system favors extremism. But it didn't, not really beforehand, because primary voters were party members, and party members tended to be pretty establishment, pretty willing to go with the party line. What happened is 2008 financial crisis broke the the political economic contract. It broke the idea that if you trust the experts, if you trust government, if you trust politicians to let them do what they know they're supposed to do on the economy, then they guarantee economic growth and prosperity, and you get a home, and you get savings, and you get to retire at 65. And 2008 financial crisis turned out much of that was, intentional or not, a lie. Millions of people lost their homes, their jobs, their savings. And so voters said, this doesn't work, we reject it. And they sought out anyone who was offering an alternative. And that's why we've entered this period of political chaos where people elect more and more extreme candidates. Because it's not because the system is so much broken, it's that you're genuinely not offering ideas that people believe in or can trust. And so they are reaching for anyone who is offering an alternative. And the only people on hand right now are pretty much just extremists on the left and right, offering kind of tried and failed stuff. But at least it's not, what voters know doesn't work, which led to the 2008 financial crisis. So it's all about bad incentives rather than true malice. But I do think, especially in our political party establishment, higher ranks of politics, I do think a lot of politicians have sort of lost faith in the future of the country. They don't. And so it has become for them much more of, I need to secure for myself. I need to get, I'm looking out for me. And I do think a lot of our politicians have adopted that attitude. They don't see a future for the country, so they don't need to care about policies that maybe sacrifice now for something better in the future. Instead, it's just, we're gonna try and get all we can now. Who cares if it divides the country? Who cares if it bankrupts the country? Who cares if it destroys the world? I just need enough to make sure I'm good for the next 40 years, and then I'll die.
So you do seem a little pessimistic, though. Are you coming from a place of optimism? Do you expect the country to get better? And if so, like, what would you do to make the country a better place?
I think expect is an interesting choice of word there. I think we have proven ourselves very capable throughout our history of pulling ourselves from the brink, pulling ourselves out of crisis, and paving the way for a bright and better future. We have done that consistently throughout our history, in crisis after crisis. In the Great Depression, World War II, and the Civil War, and the American Revolution, these were dark periods of chaos and partisanship and suffering, and we got it together, and we pushed through, and we worked out the serious problems that had afflicted our country, and we built immense prosperity off of that. So I strongly believe that that is possible and is the more likely outcome, but I don't leave that to fate. I don't assume that's predetermined. I believe it's possible, and I have to act to try and make it happen. That is our responsibility. That's my responsibility. We have to try and solve this crisis, bring the country together.
Give
And
me a little bit of a. So, is the crisis in your mind that we're too divided? I think that that is a problem, but at the same time, this is my lefty brain speaking a little bit. But like I'm okay with like there being a divide in the country. For me personally, I think that's almost like there's an element of that that's kind of healthy. I genuinely do worry about Donald Trump because he actually wants to be an authoritarian, and like half the country like wants to see him become an authoritarian. And I mean, I could go down the list of the reasons why, but I don't think I need to. Like he doesn't respect like outcomes of elections, and he just wants to be, the ruler forever, and he doesn't want to go to Congress. He wants to like pick his own justices to like so that he doesn't have to like abide by the rules. He can just like kick out justices he doesn't like and get his own, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just like obvious looking at the guy. He's not a politician. He's a salesman, and he doesn't fit the profile of someone who wants the best for the country. He wants what's best for himself. To me, this is all just kind of like very obvious. And I was willing to give Trump the benefit of the doubt on a lot of levels. And I want to bring this back to Ohio, of course, like ultimately, but like let's talk national politics for a sec. To me, the problem that could actually destroy our democracy is the cult of personality around Donald Trump. I think that the most extreme Republican we could have ever gotten, I wouldn't be saying that about. The most extreme Democrat we could have ever gotten, I wouldn't be saying that about. I think it's uniquely the person of Donald Trump, who is like a demigod. He is the singular threat to our democracy, in my mind. Tell me like how you look at that. Also, you live in a different part of the country. We probably see this differently. Perhaps I'm in California, so I'm sure I'm very biased. But like, yeah, what's your thought on that? And give me your thoughts.
So I'll preface this by saying I am a. There is Strauss-Howe generational theory. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's the fourth turning people. It is a cyclical outlook on history. What they present is essentially pseudoscience, but they have identified a pattern in history that I do believe is there. I do believe, I don't know exactly the mechanism, but something happens, and what is happening now aligns pretty well. So I read The Fourth Turning, which is about this, over a decade ago, and that is one of the things that put me on track to this, the sense that, okay, we are heading towards this crisis, and I'm living through it. I can see it. I gotta do something about it. And it basically says, due to generational shift, people with memory dying out, stuff like that, history tends to repeat itself, and usually in a roughly pattern equivalent to the human lifetime. So 80 to 90 years. 80 years ago, we had World War II, Great Depression. 80 years before that, Civil War. 80 years before that, Revolutionary War. And it comes from sort of the buildup of systemic problems that the country is unable to come together to address because of divisions, because of a lack of vision, because of all sorts of institutional decay. And so I do not think this is a Trump problem. I think Trump is one of the probably most absurd figures we could have gotten to, sort of expedite this crisis. And it's not always the case that you would have someone in power who is causing the crisis, but that seems to be what we have right now. But I really draw the spark back to 2008 financial crisis. I'll tell you that Steve Bannon, when he was advising, Donald Trump and stuff, Steve Bannon believes in this theory, and he actually thinks 9/11 is the start of the crisis. And arcane pseudo-scientific pseudo-history stuff, but that is a particular division between me and him. And in that, I think the 2008 financial crisis really sparked this whole thing. And I believe in political economic paradigms. I believe that ideas matter, that ideas are what control things more than people think. It's not great people. And 2008 financial crisis revealed the limits of the dominant idea, the dominant paradigm of the time, which was essentially neoliberalism. You could say Reaganism, you could say supply side economics. And that arose out of its own crisis, the stagflation of the 70s, which was caused by, to some extent, Keynesian New Dealism, which arose out of the Great Depression. So I do think there is.
Just to stop you a little bit, because I hear on this, I actually kind of agree with this, but that does run counter to your claim, I think, that our biggest problem is the divide between people. Like, how does the problem of the divide fit in with the problem of like the cycle that we're in, where maybe like some of this is inevitable? I'm not quite as deterministic as you on that, and I feel like if I were to poke you, you may not be quite that deterministic too. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I'm not deterministic in that. I think there is a mechanism that causes this sort of crisis of, well, I mean, it's essentially that meme of hard times create strong men thing, but
Right.
and it's essentially that meme, but it is. I'm a little less normative on that, in that, the crisis itself is not. It's important. We develop important things that are important ideas here. If we had continued on from the post World War II period, the as they would call it, which was very conformist, very, government control over a lot of things, that leads to problems in itself. So really, it's a need to change and address in a constantly changing world. So it is a need to update our ideas of how we approach the world. And this is what I believe, that with each crisis is an opportunity for new ideas to emerge and be implemented. And that
Mhm.
is what happened. Old ideas were killed in the 2008 financial crisis. They lost their credibility. And what is arising in its place is Trumpism, is MAGAism. It is this sort of incoherent protectionist nationalist attitude. And if we are not careful, that will solidify and come to dominate for the next 40 years. So in many ways, I feel it's all connected. I do think our division is a problem, but I think the solution to our division and the cause of our division, well, the cause of our division is a lack of a unifying, credible theory. And the solution is a new politics based in new, credible theories. I advocate specifically for complexity economic theory, which I shouldn't get too much into, but essentially just looking at the economy and society as a complex, evolving, dynamic ecosystem. This doesn't throw out mainstream economics. It's just another tool in the toolkit in an increasingly sophisticated, complex world where we have increasingly sophisticated power and computing. So I think we need new ideas, and I think new ideas will unify the country. And that's what I'm trying to run for. That's what I've run in the past, trying to find ways to turn the best new economic thinking into the best public policy, and then finding ways to communicate that effectively to the public so they can understand and get behind it. And I think new ideas help break us out of our trenches. It helps break us out of our bubble because
Yeah, I like this particularly as someone who's in general a Democrat. I mean, if I had my way, I'd be an independent too, probably. But in California, you know, you have to be a Democrat. You have to. Everybody's a Democrat, for better or worse. But I really like it that you're, I believe, 29. Mayor Pete Buttigieg became mayor when he was 29. AOC first entered the House when she was 29. Seems to be like a good age when you did grow up in a world that is dissimilar from the one that the previous crop of politicians grew up in, like kind of fundamentally it's a different world. So you see the world as a different thing, and you're, I think, because of that, able to inject new ideas into the political ecosystem, which I do think is great. I think that's awesome. I do want to drill into some of those new ideas a little bit more. I actually want to start just a little bit with the Forward Party, because I haven't heard much about it in a number of years, I feel like. And I've followed Andrew Yang pretty closely. My like claim to fame was I was one of the very first people to interview him back in the day when he was running for president. A friend of mine hooked me up with him, and I interviewed him, and it's super cool. It was the first interview I ever did. It was pretty cool. So I followed him pretty closely, but like I feel like the Forward Party, it just doesn't make the news anymore, and I feel like I just never hear about it. Are they still active? And what is there? Are they still like important in any way? What's going on with the Forward Party?
Oh man, yeah, I was hugely Yang Gang myself. I learned about Andrew Yang at the tail end of my libertarian campaign for state representative. I learned about him October 2018. I was like, okay, I am on board. This, like, I was pro UBI years before that, back in high school, and like I loved. He had extensive policy. He had, you know, a lot of focus on Ohio. He was the first candidate, or one of the first candidates, to come to Ohio. He came there multiple times. And I care about Ohio, and I care about politicians who care about Ohio and understand what's gone wrong. So I was a little skeptical of the Forward Party when it initially got going. And I didn't like that they took so many people after the big merger in 2022. 2022. They hired on a bunch of people from Unite America, which was the centrist project, which was the centrist party, which I followed closely, and I didn't like how they ran things, which was very top down, very focused on getting kind of establishment politicians who fought for the status quo, who fought for the old style of political thinking, of essentially neoliberalism. I am a centrist, but I am a new centrist. I think we need a new big idea that works for all Americans, and they
Ooh,
just kind of
can we
wanted to
jump
go
into
back.
that? What is your new big idea? Is it the economics thing, or is
It's
there
the economic
how
stuff.
okay? How does that square with the abundance agenda, which I've become a fan of? Being a
So
futurist, I've just like thrown around this idea of abundance rather than scarcity is a long time. I think that like the thing that people should and can get excited about is the idea of like abundance. And Ezra Klein articulated that, I think, very well in his book, and it got me excited about it. But yeah, how does like that agenda fit in with your view?
okay, so I haven't read Abundance, and I don't
Oh my God,
keep
you should.
close
I'll give you the
tabs
pitch.
on the abundance people. It does seem like an argument for a little bit of more hands-off deregulation, active deregulation, actively writing regulations to support ease of doing business. So I believe in with the complexity approach. It understands that government and markets are not in opposition to each other. They are both tools evolved by society for managing our efficiency and growth and evolution. And understanding, I think, that innovation is at heart the prime driver of all economic prosperity. It is the driver of productivity growth. It is the driver of abundance. So you need innovation. That is why I truly believe it. And I think complexity economics offers a lot of insights on how to get to that. Though again, not economics is not supposed to be a normative thing, but it provides some insights on it. It would be essentially favors more decentralization, more empowerment of individuals to make choices, more. It really embraces the concept, I think, of creative destruction, the idea that.
Give me a little like give me something like I can chew on with these big phrases.
So, like any economic framework, it informs how we implement and look at policy. One of the biggest things is going to be that we understanding the policy making process as continuous, and so we need to update. We need basically experimental policy approach. We need to understand that our policy activities influence what we are trying to regulate, so they will change and then we will need to update. So it's a continuous cycle there. Basically, for me, I say in actual practical.
So maybe like regulations
policy
don't get as.
implementations. Huh?
Are you saying that like regulations aren't as sticky as they are now? Because now we like regulate something and then it's like there forever, and they never do iterate as we grow more. So is that like a part of it? Like maybe every 5 years. I think that Andrew Yang and some other people kind of sort of talked about. I mean, Elon Musk did. Like every 10 years, they're sunsetted, and then we have to like either re-up. Is that part of this?
I mean, conceptually, yes. I think part of the reason we don't update laws is because we have partisan gridlock that says, okay, we pushed everything into one big bill. We cannot break that back open because we'll never get anything done.
Would you have that as a policy idea that we sunset regulations after 10 years? Because I feel like on your website, I'm not like able to sink my teeth into a policy idea to know if I agree or disagree with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I should send you my 2022 Dark Horse website that has a much more detailed policy. I just decided to start from scratch and like really dig into things. I don't think I like sunsetting laws because I don't like things that tie the hands of people and decision makers too much. Let me just say, as practical implementation of my vision and my policy, innovation, invention, new ideas, they have almost infinite positive externalities. The creator of a new idea has very little ability to capture all of the profits from that idea. So in even standard economic thought, that means, the market will not produce enough new ideas. So the government should invest in it, or the public should invest in new ideas. I believe strongly investing in innovation, strongly investing in new ideas. And how I would do that is basically the innovation research industrial complex. Let's say invest in Ohio's amazing public university system. We have some top flight research universities and private research institutions. Invest in our universities, invest in our schools, create more educated people, and then invest in providing venture capital essentially for these people. And all universities have technology transfer offices, which are supposed to basically make these publicly funded technologies and inventions available for entrepreneurs to work with the inventors to take those things to market. That is the key part of innovation. It's not just invention. You have to then apply it, take it to market. So for me, it is investing in universities and then providing capital to take that to market, and to do that in a large scale at a small scale. So lots of small investments, essentially. A lot of create a competitive environment, use the evolutionary process, market dynamics to our advantage. It is creative destruction. It is empowering people to make decisions for themselves. Because really what complexity economics understands is that society is information processing system, and you have a larger, more distributed processing network, the better. And that is why markets outcompete centrally planned economies all the time, because instead of 1,000 bureaucrats or 1,000 oligarchs, no matter how smart those people are, they are not going to do better than 100 million people making decentralized decisions for themselves. So that's why you would
Yeah,
also
I do like this a lot. Have you followed at all Mom Donnie's campaign in New York?
only tangentially through what social media pushes to me.
He has a couple of talking points and a couple of points on his website that are like incredibly enticing for and he doesn't get credit for these, but I think people see them and this is why they like them. So for example, on his main campaign video that pops up when you Google his name, like campaign video, and also right in the heart of his website, he has this idea that if you want to open up a business in New York City, you can do it. It's going to be easy. We're going to make it so that you can run your mom and pop shop. And here's how. For which city, but some city made it so that if you want to become a barber, it takes 3 days, couple of sheets of paper in 3 days. In New York City, it takes like 12 months and like reams of paper. It's like the paper's going away in 3 days. You can start your barber shop, that sort of thing. What do you think about that? And would that resonate with voters in Ohio?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been working on as an idea since 2018 and was part of my 2022 campaign is what I call the Ohio Investment Bank, which is in no way an investment bank, but it's a good name. And basically, I do want to create, with those technology transfer offices, one-stop shopping for new business creation, basically have access to services for business management, accounting, stuff like that you need when you're a small business starting off, understanding the red tape, understanding the regulatory system, and also understanding how to connect to larger markets, how to find suppliers around the globe, and how to find customers around the globe. I think facilitating that is good and important. What you essentially described is a delicensing regime, which is like from state to state, every state, there are so many different jobs, different services that require some sort of licensing, and it differs from state to state, such that I think across the entire country that every single state has licensing for, there's only like 30 to 50 occupations that universally require actual licensing. So in some states, you need 2,000 hours to be in practice to be a licensed barber. In some states, it's 0. So, and everyone always talks, hey, let us rationalize this system a bit. And there are arguments for not delicensing, but what it comes down to is people benefit from limiting new entrants into the market. If you are a barber, if you are a doctor, you want less competition. So, and you can argue factually that, hey, this can be dangerous. It's important that we have really high standards, and people will listen to that. But at the end of the day, what that often does more than anything is secure power for those who already have it. So having a more open system that allows more people to enter the market is good, because you want deregulation for an open market system so you don't concentrate power. And this is true for all sorts of regulatory and licensing regimes, like GMOs. Those are like super heavily regulated these days, often as a result of advocacy from environmental organizations or like Greenpeace and stuff. But who do those actually benefit? They benefit Monsanto. They benefit Bayer now, because the huge corporation is the only one with the legal firm who can pay to navigate all the red tape. So you're actually keeping real innovation out. And
Totally. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, deregulate that. And
relatedly, you have this idea of the Rust Belt Renaissance. Can you tell me about that?
yeah, so Ohio, we are the Rust Belt. Some politicians don't like that. Sherrod Brown, is our former senator, who's trying to get his seat back next year, is consistently one of his slogans is we're bearing the Rust Belt, and I've never liked that because obviously he was born at a time before that was a reality, even if industrialization was already sort of happening even in the 50s. But it is our culture, it is our history, and I think we need to embrace it and understand history matters for the future. History matters for policy. To write good policy, you have to understand yourself, you have to understand your state, you have to understand where you come from. So we're not sweeping that under the rug. Instead, we look at not how that's a disadvantage, but how that's an advantage. And throughout history, you have seen places that suffered, places that have hit hard times. They tend to bounce back stronger and take the lead. In some cases, it's sort of the leapfrogging opportunity, like, and where you get to leapfrog technology because you didn't have the standard to begin with, like, let's say phone connections. A lot of Africa does not need to build wired phone lines across their entire continent because they didn't have that. And now we have wireless phone technology, so they get to leapfrog that. We can leapfrog things too. I do believe strongly that Ohio is uniquely positioned for the 21st century economy, which is a much more decentralized economy. It is a much more distributed economy. Um, Current politicians, they like to look on the past. They like to think of, we need to bring a big employer here, a big factory with 5,000 jobs. That's not the way the world works anymore. That's not the way the economy works anymore. And the more they try and fight for that, the more they are dooming us. We need a robust economy. We need small and medium-sized businesses. We need lots of startups. We need lots of new technologies. Ohio is one of the most urbanized states in the union, and it is not because we have one big city like New York or Chicago. It's because we have dozens and dozens of small and medium-sized cities, 40, 50,000 people. And we have community colleges, we have universities in many of these towns, we have a history of industrialism in these towns, we have distribution networks in these towns. And that positions us very well for the modern decentralized economy. So we need to have people who will take advantage of that, who will invest in that, who understand we need to invest in education and skills in these locations, invest in entrepreneurship in these locations, and invest in the cities themselves, giving the cities power to reinvest in themselves to make them livable places. If you want to talk about the abundance agenda, that's a lot of that is YIMBYism. A lot of that is, hey, we actually have a bunch of small cities with nice downtowns, or downtowns that can be nice, where we can actually build a lot, where there are actually a lot of vacant properties already. We can build here without too much of a fight.
Mm-hmm.
They are close to other major cities. I mean, Columbus is our boom town right now and is in the center of the city, of the state. But if we invest in these small cities and invest in what connects them to other cities, then we can grow in those places without what we are hitting in Columbus with very high rents, very difficult construction, because
Mm-hmm.
it's growing and it's not growing in the most enlightened fashion. We can have growth by investing in our small cities instead of big
Okay,
cities.
I love this. Yeah, I'm slightly running out of time, so I might hit you with
Yeah.
one more question. Do you happen to know the number one employer in Ohio? I just
I
looked this
mean,
up. So I cheated.
No,
Yeah, take a guess.
I would say outside the government, I'd say Walmart.
Walmart. Yeah, they are the number one employer. And Walmart is right now in the process of putting a ton of money into automation, particularly like in the back end of stores, et cetera. And automation is presumably, a lot of experts are saying, going to hit a lot of, parts of the economy. And we might, a couple of years from now, just like have a job apocalypse. Like Zoltan Isfan is talking about this. What is your plan for, let's just say hypothetically, Walmart does start to really automate jobs. The state's number one employer cuts back half of its labor force. The already declining population in Ohio starts to really shrink as people flee. I mean, like, what's the role of the government there to make it so that the place stays livable? I know that you're probably a fan of UBI, but like, just in general, let me toss the question to you like as this, like, what's your plan for automation and making it so that if there is a job apocalypse, which I think isn't an insane idea at this point, is not an insane idea at this point. What's your plan for the government's role to make it so people don't, riot on the streets?
I'll say, first of all, I'm not gonna assume that this time it's definitely different, because people have been predicting massive job losses for over 100 years from automation stuff. I do think there's potential. And here's the thing. I think automation is good. I think reducing the labor humanity needs to do is good. So we actually want that to happen. But the issue is, of course, how as a society do we manage it? A UBI is good. A UBI will be necessary. And even without massive job losses, a UBI has huge advantages for innovation, for market participation, for free will, and an empowered people who can better run their own lives. But outside of that, this is why I support a robust economy, an economy that doesn't rely on one or two big employers, but lots of medium-sized businesses, people being able to start their own businesses, basically people being able to thrive and have skills that they can apply to solving problems in society. That is why I want to invest now in laying the groundwork for that, of giving people capital, giving people how to start businesses, how to run businesses, and be very adaptable. Creative destruction is the reality, and the reality of our economy is that we're going to have to change jobs a lot, and maybe we have to change how we think about employment and how it relates to everything we need to survive. Attaching health insurance and healthcare to employment, not the best idea. Attaching basic survival to employment, not the best idea. We need to be a more adaptive economy for that. Prosperity helps. The richer you are as a state, as a society, the easier it is to manage creative distraction, manage the losses, so people aren't suffering in the process. And so having automation, having creative destruction is good for society. It makes us all wealthier. And so we should foster it and not resist it. And we should understand that it is good to take care of people who lose jobs, because the process that caused them to lose a job is good for all of us. So there is no shame to losing the job. And as a society, we owe it to ourselves and to each other to take care of each other for that. So that my basic approach, continue to invest in the decentralized, robust economy, and try and keep making sure we are richer and better financially prepared for any shocks that come, whether it's AI or whether it's, I don't know, some crazy person implementing insane tariffs that destroy our industrial base even further.
Can't imagine that ever happening.
Your question on Forward, I have endless things to talk about Forward. I was leading Ohio Forward for 15 months. I was in it for over 2 years with other leaders, talking to people. I have a lot to talk about that movement if you ever want to have a follow-up conversation on that.
Okay, great. Yeah, that might be a lot of fun. For anybody who is curious about his campaign, it is timgradyforohio.com. I will put the link down below. I'll also put links to Tim's social media, etc. So check him out. And Tim Grady, thanks again.